If you're looking for more horror outside of the mainstream, look no further than Unsung Horrors, a podcast about underseen horror movies. I'm Lance.
And I'm Erica. Every other week, we'll cover a horror movie with fewer than 1,000 views on Letterboxd. We'll even give you double feature recommendations to pair with the movies we discuss.
From gothic to shot on video, from slashers to comedies, from giallo to J-horror, we'll cover all the subgenres. So join us as we unearth these hidden gems of horror.
Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, all at Unsung Horrors, available wherever you listen to podcasts. And part of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Hello, my name is Kevin Tudor, and I'm one of the three hosts of Almost Major, a film podcast dissecting many major indie studios and the films they release. Every week, myself, Charlie Nash, and Bryden Doyle discuss overlooked, forgotten, or bona fide classic indie films via studio-specific miniseries. We've previously covered numerous films from Artisan Entertainment, Lionsgate Films, and New Line Cinema. Titles including The Blair Witch Project, American Psycho, Dogville, But I'm a Cheerleader, Saw, Requiem for a Dream, and Ringmaster, you know, the Jerry Springer film. Anyways, we have a fun time every week and we hope you will join us. Subscribe to Almost Major wherever you get your podcasts. Now proudly a part of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Weirding Way Media.
Right, Mr. Walters?
You see that guy over there? Now, he's an actor. The guy on the phone, he's a prize fighter. Me, I'm a cab driver. I'm the only cab driver in this place.
Good evening and welcome to Night Mr. Walters, the Taxi Podcast. I'm HP, your co-host, and with me as always is my co-host, Father Malone. Father Malone, how are you this evening?
I'm doing well, HP. I need you to do me a favor.
Yeah, anything.
Hit A7 on the jukebox.
Tugging at the heartstrings already, Father Malone. We're in for it. This is of course Taxi Season 2, Episode 17. Guess Who's Coming for Brefnish? This was written by Barry Kemp and directed by, of course, James Burrows. Reminder to everybody, we're doing these shows in broadcast order and not in order of filming. We opened, this was one of the more odd, I mean, I feel like I always say that, Father Malone, but this
Completely
is a
bizarre, actually. I think
This
is what
was-
you're saying. Like, even for Taxi, what they do with their fucking B-roll here, I don't know what they're doing.
It really had no real context. It's a still shot of New York. And when I say still shot, it's literally not, it's not in motion. It's as if they're filming a photograph. And it kind of looks a little bit like a still frame from the Eleanor Rigby segment of Yellow Submarine. And because it's the sort of urban blight of New York and the sky is an odd color. And there's a static zoom on what appears to be a building exhaust, like one of those fans on top of a building. I don't know what the context was. And then this gives way to a more traditional motion shot in front of the garage. We see the taxis coming in and out. But I guess I'm just not really sure what Burroughs was going for with this weird still shot. Do you have any notion?
I don't know what he was going for other than he wanted a particular thing, and this is the only way to accomplish it. But I'd like to point out that while it does freeze frame, it starts out in motion. So what we've got is footage that they were filming, and he decided, no, I wanted them to see down there, but they didn't do anything with the camera. So he freezes the frame and then zooms in. So what it ends up looking like is any transition in a Rob Zombie movie.
Oh, interesting.
You can imagine Leonard Skinner playing, and you'd be like, "Oh yeah."
We cut into the garage. The woman walks into the garage asking Louis for where Mr. Mackenzie is, and she says she's here for the secretarial position. I'm going to say right off the bat, like this was a very thin premise for introducing this one of the main characters of this episode. I don't know how you felt about it. I thought it was disposable what they do. So this woman's here to apply as a secretary for Mr. Mackenzie. Louis walks her over to this group and tells her to wait and puts on this big cheesy smile and says that he hopes she gets the job because she's his favorite. And he walks back to the cage and another woman comes in and again, the same thing happens. And I guess we're supposed to think that he takes a special interest because he wants to get in good with the boss's secretary. I thought it was this may be the worst thing about the episode, which,
Okay. First of all, the first woman had hair more Adrienne Barbeau than even Adrienne Barbeau.
very, very curly and fluffy, I guess was the word, fluffy.
It was like one of the stone lions outside the New York Public Library. Secondly, I thought this was going to be a disposable opening anyway. This was just some bit of piffle before the main plot kicked in. So the fact that it actually led to the main plot, I actually thought, can I say actually again? Can you cut out one of my actuallys there? No,
Actually, I can.
mentioning it so much. Love Actually, series of one act plays. Get out of here. The fact that we end up meeting Simca at the end of it, I thought was clever. I do think the very thin joke of "you're my favorite," like, ugh, it's Louis being a creep. Like, Louis is a better creep than that.
Louis takes the second woman over to this group of women who are applying for the secretarial position. Elaine is seated playing cards with Alex and Bobby, and she wonders aloud why Louis is sucking up to all these applicants. Just then, Tony walks in and tells Louis the bad news that he's been robbed. He tells Louis they got pretty much all of his bookings, which was close to $100, which prompts Louis to give
he's ever had.
Right. Louis calls him a dough brain for losing his biggest booking night in 6 months. Tony goes over to the card table to fill out a
Even
report.
better. Even better, HB. He calls him a Momo.
A Momo.
Which I never hear anymore. But when we were growing up in Boston, I used to hear Momo a lot.
But what is a Momo? What is the derivation of Momo?
A Momo is just an idiot. It's just Italian. I think it's a nonsense word, honestly, but it just means you're a fucking idiot. Quit being a Momo.
Oh, okay. He's filling out this form. The cabbies are asking Tony questions about the robber. There are some jokes at Tony's expense, but honestly, I was too distracted by Elaine's sequined green sweater. It kind of made her look like a mock-up of outer space with all these sequins on it, or a bad magician's assistant outfit. This is probably the worst outfit I've seen her wear in many episodes. I'm sure you agree.
No, I don't, because we've seen her in that poor Western wear that they sometimes put her in.
Yeah.
That's worse. In fact, there's one shirt in particular that every time I see it, I used to get mad when they put her in red. I would rather they put her head to toe red and red lipstick rather than this faux Western shirt with different colored piping on each of the collars and the things. It'll show up either here or in the next episode, but it's gross. So comparatively, the green at least complements her red hair. So
it does, but it's sort of formless. It's a bit like the sort of slouch sweaters that Alex favors, but it's, like I said, it's this weird shade of green. It has these sequins all over it. I
think perhaps this is a choice so that they can highlight Simca in this episode. Because let's face it, if you're highlighting Marilu Henner in any way, you're not going to see anybody on screen.
And by the way, this whole business with Tony and getting robbed, this is another qualm I had with this episode because it doesn't go anywhere. You think that maybe it's going to lead into a real solid B plot, but there's no B plot in this. Just spoiler alert, there's no B plot in this whole episode.
I was expecting a C plot because we get introduced to the new secretary.
Right. Like I said, that was the only perplexing bit, but it is eclipsed by what's to come. So I didn't really mind it that much, but just, and the good news is all of this shoe leather is getting taken up early in the episode. We don't have to worry about it after this scene, literally.
HP, here's the question. Why didn't they just hire Simca?
We can't have her being at the garage with Latka. There has to be this idea that he's not going to see her.
He's off doing. They need to ask him what they've been up to so he can outline their adventures, maybe.
I hear what you're saying. I just feel like there's a dozen different ways they could have introduced Simca without adding this weirdness with Tony getting robbed and the secretary job getting filled. Because, like I said, those two would-be plot threads go nowhere. But that's okay because we're about to be wrapped up with them. At this point, an older woman comes down the stairs and tells the rest of this would never happen in real life. She comes down the stairs and tells the rest of the applicants, you can all go home now because the secretary position has been filled by me. which I think is absurd. Like, you're going to tell these people leave because I've got the job.
It seems like it would be not out of place in the 1930s when an actress comes out of the casting agent's office. Like, you can all go home, suckers. They've cast me. But it's like secretary for a fucking cab company.
It did
And
have
a
a
close
feel,
one.
like a vaudevillian feel to it. I think you're right. Yeah. So Louis tells them all to beat it. And one woman in the back is sort of muttering to herself. But what catches the cabbie's attention is that she uses the word yaktabe, which we've heard Latka use over and over again during the course of the series. This in turn catches Latka's attention. And he starts to talk to this woman in Latka speak. He takes her over to the cab he was working on, and they start to chatter back and forth. And it becomes apparent that she's from his home country. This is, of course, Carol Kane, veteran of a million guest roles that everybody knows by now. She was in The Princess Bride, she was in Scrooged, she was in Seinfeld, Ishtar. She has 175 credits and counting, dating back to her 1971 debut in the movie Carnal Knowledge. But this character of Simca Doblitz just might be her most indelible. Do you agree, Father Malone?
Oh, definitely her most famous role, certainly. I'd like to point out she was also on Tales from the Dark Side, season 2. We just talked about her over on Midnight Viewing. And what was the other Carol Kane role that sort of
She was in When a Stranger Calls. She was the star there. But she's been in a million things. Everybody knows her. She's so distinctive. But like I said, I believe she's best known as Simca in Taxi. And here's her introduction. Latka introduces Simca to the rest of the cabbies. He's very specific. He says she is Simca Doblitz, but not the Simca Doblitz.
a good line.
It is, and I'm so happy to see. It feels like Andy Kaufman hasn't really been a presence in a lot of these episodes, and we're about to hit a nice run of having Latka involved, and I'm really here for it. It's really nice to see him active and engaged in the episode. By the way, I don't know if you noticed this, Father Malone, but as Simca and Latka are having their conversation, I couldn't help but notice that Carol Kane didn't seem to yet have a good grasp on how to really do Latka speak. Did you notice that? There's something in the way she's doing it that just it feels like she's kind of cheating the idea of doing it. It doesn't have the same, I don't know. There's something about it that didn't feel right. Did you notice that?
I noticed the exact opposite of what you just said.
Really? Because for me, it was a lot of like ba-da-da-da, ba-da-da-da, ba-da-da-da,
Yep.
which I think is a cheap way of doing it. If you really listen to Andy Kaufman, he's not just like I could do that, but he's mixing it up and making it really sound like a real foreign tongue. But you're saying you had the opposite reaction.
Yeah, I don't think she's cheating at all. I think she's keeping up with him. I think Simca talks faster than him. I think Simca has more practice with her language than Latka does since he's been in New York City. No, as soon as they started conversing, I thought, wow, she's because you can hear her, she's hitting the words. It isn't just like flibbity bibbity bop. And you know that I'm sure you've read a book or the story about Carol Kane, like trying to figure out the language and asking him for help and saying they're going to go down to Tijuana.
No, no. Please enlighten the listeners. Tell the story.
Carol Kane asks him, can we rehearse? I need to be able to speak this language you speak. And he said, yeah, let's get together on Saturday and we'll go down to Tijuana and we will only speak in that foreign man language and we'll be surrounded by people who don't understand us either way. So we can really focus on it. And so she said she called him on the day and was like, so when are we going? And he was like, what are you talking about? Like, it was just a joke. Like, he didn't intend to do any of that. He was just like, just show up and do it.
Latka is acting as interpreter with this conversation with the cabbies and Simca. And he says that, or Simca explains through Latka that she came to America because in their country, the mountain people are moving into the villages and there's much hatred because no one likes the mountain people. When pressed by the cabbies, Latka can't even explain why there's hatred. He just says it's because they're mountain people, which I think it's a facile analogy, but it really, really works here because of the innocence of Latka the character and the idea of his home country. They don't get wrapped up into the hows and whys of the racism involved, but they keep it sort of very surface level and abstract about the mountain people. I really like that part of it because it's
HP, my side, my left side is black. My right side of my face is white. Your face is the opposite. We are enemies. That Frank Gorshin?
it is Frank Gorshin. It is. I don't recall the name of the
Doubling
Star
down
Trek
on the
episode.
nerddom.
Sure. But yeah, I'd like the fact that, I mean, it's a comedy and they don't get too bogged down in the awfulness of racism. I mean,
No,
there's
they
so
just
much
turn
else.
it into they turn it into Romeo and Juliet. It's just the Capulets and the
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Montagues. Jeez, it took me.
Anyway, there's this thing about the mountain people. Latka then proceeds to tell the first of many mountain people jokes that we're going to hear throughout the episode, but he's oblivious to some obvious discomfort at the attempted humor. Latka then declares that he's going to show Simka America, and rather disarmingly, he's going to go and get his coat, but not before kissing her hand very, very sweetly. And I don't know, the innocence of that. And say what you want about Andy Kaufman, the sort of provocateur. He is so sweet as Latka, and it's so beautiful. I don't know. You're already rooting for him and this woman. I just thought it was a nice touch. Really beautiful.
Yeah, for all his provocation, for all his outrageousness, I think there's a reason everyone tolerated any of it. And it's because it was a deeply sweet human being underneath all of it.
Yeah, he can do all of that with just a glance or, like I said, a simple kiss on the hand.
It's the curse of John Belushi, right? Like they demonstrated that in the Blues Brothers. Like, well, let me just take off my glasses and give you these eyes. It's like, you prick. Some people could just do that.
Like I said, Lockett goes to get his coat.
HP,
And
do you think
yeah,
that Mike Myers was attempting to signal his love for Carol Kane when he created Lothar of the Hill People for Saturday Night Live? Now knowing that Simca is a mountain person.
Lothar of the Hill People. I'm gonna have to look that up on YouTube. I haven't seen that sketch in decades. That's that's great. You know what's funny? I don't know if it's a callback, but did you know that there was a group in the 1960s called Lothar and the Hand People? And I've often wondered if maybe
Oh,
that's
there's no coincidence there. No, I did not know that, but obviously.
it's gotta be, right? The connections are too strong there. Hand people versus hill people. Yeah, it's gotta be. Uh Good group, by the way. You should check them out. Simka's waiting with the cabbies, and Elaine says that Laka really likes her, which Simka says is really bad because, as you would expect, she's a mountain person, you see. Simka left her country to get away from the Flatlanders who hated her. The way that Carol Kane plays her, she's so sweet, but she's so guarded and so sad. You really get the sense that she's very sensitive about this whole mountain people thing.
She
And
seems like
she's
an open wound, HP.
yeah, exactly, exactly. So you're sort of waiting for the other shoe to drop during this whole episode, and it just makes it all the more wrenching when it does because they're so sweet in their sort of courtship.
HP,
So
can I point out one thing that I noticed in
yeah,
this
of
episode?
course.
It's in most of the episodes, but for some reason it clicked here during this scene, which is I really love the dynamic of the fact that Reverend Jim is the newest character on the show. And as the newest, and as that character is just an outsider in general. He's always on the periphery.
Yeah,
No, no matter the scene, the setup is always everyone and over there, Jim. Just like it's everyone and over there, Louis. And there's something about that dynamic every time they show it that I really like, which allows Christopher Lloyd to sort of like bring the focus to him as he like creeps up and then like recedes. Like that, I don't know. Something about the dynamic on this show with that is pretty spectacular.
I 100% agree. In fact, I'm glossing over a lot of the Reverend Jim bits because he's there and he's making comments and he's getting involved. And to your point, he's receding. It's not going to do any good for me to try and repeat the humor back because it'll just take all of the funny out of it. But just understand, as Father Malone is saying here, Jim is great. He's always there. He pipes in with a story about some drug casualty that he knew or something that he did. And then he kind of fades back into the background, and it's really, really funny. Latka comes over. He finally gets his coat. As they leave, Bobby asks Latka where he's going to take Simca, and Latka replies that they're going to see all the sights of New York City. They're going to see the Knights on Broadway. They're going to see the Statue of Liberty. And then the final thing he says, they're going to see the apartment of a lonely, lonely man. Fade out as they exit the garage, and Latka and Simca are off and running. We fade back in to Mario's, where Jim, Alex,
Mario's, yeah, get the B-roll on Mario's.
another
We
zoom
don't
in to
ever have to cut to some random awninged restaurant in New York City now. We've got Mario's on tap.
It's no longer like the Beast's stronghold in Krull, and I think you've made that comparison before. It's in its place. The marquee is there. They zoom in. You know exactly where we are. We're in Mario's. Jim, Alex, Bobby, and Tony are getting served by Tommy. Hey, it's a TJ Castronova sighting. I missed him too.
Absolutely. Yeah, they
Great.
like the pitcher of beer, and then they like make them go get another glass because they're a bunch of pricks.
Elaine hustles in to the table as they ask her how the dinner with Latka and Simca went last night. Evidently, she went out to dinner with or had dinner with them, maybe at his house. And Elaine she's smitten. She says they're a cute couple. They all agree that they've never seen Latka so happy before. At this point, Tony and Bobby go to the back to play air hockey, which is they only do that so that they can have those two seats available when Latka and Simca come into Mario's at the same time, and they take those newly vacant seats. It's almost like they're just there to leave. It's odd. They shouldn't have even been there in the first place. So they tell the cabbies all about their day. Among the activities, Latka took her to see Greece.
Wait,
I assume.
so at this point in the scene, have Banta and Wheeler taken off for the
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
air hockey?
They went
Okay.
to play air hockey and they leave their seats, but I think it's only because
Right.
Latka and Simca arrive.
Right. So the writers are getting rid of these characters because these two characters are arriving. But in the scene, Latka wants to come. Oh, no, Jim wants to come play air hockey. And Banta is a cocksucker to him, man.
He's a real dick because again, I'm glossing over this, but he says, well, I'm going to come watch you guys. And then Tony starts in with, well, you're going to make me nervous. So basically, he freezes poor Jim. All Jim wants to do is hang out with them and be included in their fun. And yeah, Tony just ices him out.
I got right here in my notes. Banta is a dick. And you know what? I'm usually on Banta's side. I think he's a lovable doofus most of the time, but like here, he was just being a prick. Oh, he's gonna ruin your air hockey game. In the back of Mario's. Oh my god! What if word gets out?
It's a kid's game. Let's not forget. But I've been saying this all along. You know me. I've been saying that I wouldn't even say lovable doofus. He's just a doofus. He's a Momo. What are you going to do? They mentioned that they went to see Grease, which I assume must be a stage production of it, because I think the movie had already been out. Obviously, the movie had been out because Jeff Conaway was in the movie. Anyway, Latka was disappointed in Grease because he thought it was going to be about mechanics, which dismayed him apparently. Latka gets up to get drinks, and then Simca again expresses her concern about the truth about her being a mountain person coming out. She still
have
hasn't
some
told
concern
him.
here.
Yeah.
I have concern for fucking Judd Hirsch's cream turtleneck and corduroy brown jacket combo.
But that's par for the course for a Rieger. Why is this in particular bothering you?
Because it gets matched by the fucking red turtleneck gray thing that Latka's wearing. Suddenly you got these bookends, these turtlenecked bookends. It's just, I don't know, something wrong.
The twin towers of corduroy and wool
God,
on
no.
either side of the table.
Or thank.
Latka returns with her drink, something called mushi. I don't know if that's a real drink. It looked like it was milk in a glass.
No, it's not a real drink. What
I don't know. Mushi
Latin language.
But then why? How does Tommy have mushi on tap at?
I don't think he does. I think Latka went up and said, I would like a mushi. And Tommy went, what the fuck are you talking about, Latka? And he said, it's this, this, and this. And he went, oh, why didn't you say so? And then he made it.
Or he said, well, Mushi, and Tommy's like, well, what is Mushi? He said, well, you get the cow and oh, you mean milk? Yes, milk. Maybe that's what it was. Maybe Mushi's another word for milk. Who knows?
I think there's vodka in there.
There could be like a White Russian, something like that. Does that
Yeah.
have vodka and milk? I don't know.
Well, yeah, half and half.
So Simka gets up and takes Latka to another table. She's going to reveal the truth to him about her being a mountain person. And this results in it's the iconic scene of Simka. She had already had her hand lovingly on Latka's as she starts to tell him the truth. And she grabs his hand and starts slapping him in the face with his own hand, like hitting himself, which they reproduced that for the Man on the Moon movie with Jim
Oh,
Carrey.
that's right.
They even reproduced it there, but it's iconic. She's slapping him. Every time she slaps him, she's rebuking him for all the mountain people jokes she's telling. He was telling, like he says, this is for my grandfather and this is for my father. And keeps slapping him. And she ends by saying that her heart will be broken because he won't love her anymore. But he says, well, that's not true. But despite his words, Simka is pressing him to look at her, but he can't bring himself to look at her. But there's actually a really funny bit where he's trying to push his face in her direction so that he can look at her, and it's not working. It's almost this robotic thing where he keeps touching his cheek to try and get his face to turn. It's a really funny bit. It's great physical comedy from Kaufman. But eventually, sadly, Simka says, so long, Latka, and walks out, and we fade to commercial. We cut back to the garage as some sad piano music plays. Latka
Hey,
asks,
wait, before we move on, I would like to say that one of the places that they visited was the automat.
oh, right. Oh, the automat, which is a real. Do they still have those in New York anymore? There was a documentary on automats. Did you know
Yeah,
that?
I think the final one closed a few years ago. But yeah, no, I went to that one in New York when I was a kid in the 80s, that the automat that they're talking about. Or there might have been a few at the time. But I definitely remember going to the automat and getting a piece of cherry pie out of the thing.
Yeah, for people who don't know, the automat was basically like a wall of dispensers, and you would get pie or all kinds of
Sandwiches
treats,
and
sandwiches.
everything.
Yeah, it was like something out of the Jetsons, really. It was all this food hidden behind little dispensers. Uh, it's a real slice of New York history. Like I said, I don't recall the name of this documentary, but they did do a
Automat.
documentary. Was it called The Automat?
Mhm.
It may have been nominated for an Academy Award. I don't know. I think Mel Brooks was involved somehow. He might have done the theme song, I think, maybe.
He's definitely interviewed for it.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a real New York thing. You're right. He did mention that he took her to the automat. We're back in the garage. Latka asks Louis to go home because he doesn't feel well. He says he has the blues, but Louis, being Louis, refuses. Latka goes and asks Alex and Elaine for advice about Simka. He says he feels terrible since they broke up. He can't eat and he can't sleep. And as much as he wants to be with Simka, he says there's nothing worse in his country than to date a mountain girl. Elaine asks Alex to give Latka some advice, but as is typical, Alex balks at telling someone else how to run their life. It's just, I guess that's consistent, right? He always does that.
The pendulum swing that is Rieger, yeah, because sometimes he's all about getting in somebody's fucking business no matter what, and sometimes he's like, don't get me involved. Nobody wants to hear from me. They're grown people. Make your own decisions.
It is a little bit of a pendulum swing. You're right about that. But anyway, Latka is begging Alex to help him, so he relents. And Alex urges, this is really weird sequence where Alex urges Latka to reflect on all the good aspects of the last week that he spent with
Oh my.
Simka.
Do I
It gets-
like this? I like that. I like how weird it gets.
It starts off very innocent, like
And you know
remember
what?
how
I'm with Rieger because as he's describing it, I'm thinking, you know what? That you're right, Rieger. Fucking get up and walk out. Go stay here, Latka.
right. Because it starts out, he's just saying, well, remember how it felt when she held your hand? Remember how the nape of her neck felt? And he keeps
Smell of her
escalating.
hair. Yeah, he's like
Yeah.
he's getting into it.
He's getting a little bit aroused. And I think he even concludes by saying, look, if you don't go out there, Latka, I'm going to go because now I'm getting excited. Latka finally resolves to go to Simka, but Louis is, again, he's refusing to allow him to leave. And then we have angry Alex comes out, the same Alex that we've seen chase Louis around the garage in a murderous rage. He starts yelling at Louis, but Elaine opts for a different approach. And what transpires is a funny sort of escalation where she says, if you don't let Latka leave, I'm going to report you to the Board of Labor Relations.
I
And
love this
then,
thing.
yeah, and then Louis says, well, if you do that, I'm going to fire you. And then she says, well, if you're going to fire me, I'm going to report you to the union. And this war of it keeps escalating until finally they're threatening physical violence. And he says something like, well, if you do this, then I'm going to kick you. And she says, well, if you do that, then I'm going to kick you where you live, which she's threatening to kick him in the balls, basically. And at that point, it's too much.
There's no
DEFCON
way
1.
Louis can win.
That's it. Louis, he's stymied by Elaine finally, and he lets Flocka go on his way. Then we
I felt
fade
like
in.
Rieger's outburst. I like that it suddenly got tempered by Elaine because it was feeling like once too often Rieger does you listen to me, Louis.
Well, it makes sense because Elaine has been there for these Alex outbursts. So she finally correctly deduces that he's not going to get anywhere. This is just going to become ugly. I'd rather handle this with a little bit of subtlety.
We don't need to rip the fucking cage open again, Alex. We're just trying to get Latka out on a date.
We fade in to Mario's as Latka is sitting there waiting nervously for Simca. She arrives and says that she's late because she has a job now. She apparently there's a rake at the horse track that the horses that picks up all of the horse mess, and you need people to weigh it down, and she's the one in the middle. It sounds perfectly awful, but whatever. I mean, honestly, they probably should have just said that she's a secretary in a dentist office, and it would have been fine. I don't know why they create this weird. Anyway,
This image of her like on a tractor with horse shit. Like, what the fuck?
yeah, and it makes even less sense given what we hear she's been up to. So Latka declares,
true.
you know what I mean? Like, just to spoil it a little bit, she's eventually going to disclose that she has a boyfriend. Who's going to want to date this woman who's sitting on the back of a horse shit rake in the racetrack? It just seems odd to me, but whatever. Latka declares to Simca that he has good news, that he no longer cares that she's a mountain person. He says he is willing to disgrace himself to be with her. Upon hearing the news that he's going to go forward with Simca, he says his mother has disowned him, his grandfather put a curse on him, his brother never wants to see him again, and his crazy Uncle Dobby gave his blessings. He tries to touch Simca's hand, but she recoils and says they can't date anymore. She says she's never going to be able to get past his prejudice. And besides which, like I said, she's found somebody else. At this point, again, I'm speaking his praises, but Kaufman does a great job of conveying the quiet impact of hearing that she's found someone else. I think anybody who's dated somebody and maybe hasn't that news, even if you've broken up with that person, when you hear that they found someone else, the way you die inside a little bit, I thought Kaufman does a great job with that. He really just kind of, it's almost like a momentary jolt. Did you notice that how this affected him?
Oh yeah, no, he's marvelous here.
It's amazing.
If the episode works at all, it's not just because of him, it's because of him and Carol Kane, but they're driving the engine here.
To be fair, not to again get too ahead of ourselves, but any yellow lights that this episode is earning are being earned in this scene in particular. This is really where this is the money scene for this whole episode. This is where everything comes together. Simca says her new boyfriend knows that she's a mountain person. He doesn't care. And this new boyfriend comes in to meet Simca. He's a very good looking guy who turns out to be a good catch. He's a surgeon. Laka's making these feeble attempts to throw shade at this guy, but it doesn't do any good. The boyfriend says he's going to wait outside for Simca. And she finally says to Latka, she basically says how sorry she is that all of this happened. And he can only respond that he's sorry too. And Simca leaves, but not before Latka says to her that she's a wonderful girl and that he's learned his lesson, but it does no good. She Then in a nice reversal of what I talked about earlier, she kisses his hand, Latka's hand, and leaves with this new boyfriend. And Latka cradles his hand and as he shuffles back over to the bar. And it's heart-wrenching because he's just staring at this hand that he just got kissed by this woman who's now walked out of his life, who was really the perfect woman that his prejudices just wouldn't allow him to be happy. He goes up to the bar. Tommy says to Latka that he's got to close up, but Latka can stay for one more drink.
Tommy's cool, man.
Tommy's awesome. Tommy is everything you want in a bartender.
Girl breaks up with you. Tommy's there with a beer. You can sit down.
A beer and a kind ear.
And a joke. And he'll light up your smoke. And say, man, what are you doing here?
Latka asks Tommy to play the song that he and Simca used to love together. It's A7, as you said earlier, on the jukebox. Tommy punches the numbers into the jukebox, and over the jukebox, we hear Summer Lovin' from Grease starts playing, and which gets a lot of laughs at first because it's so incongruous with what's happening.
Yeah, it's a nice juxtaposition at first.
Yeah.
This happy love tune mixed with this scene of breakup. But of course, that song is about a breakup, really.
Side note, I'm sure you already knew this.
Clearly, Jeff Conaway singing in the background.
Well, yes. So it's not the actual, it's not the song from the movie, and it's not a song from any of the stage productions. This was recorded specifically for this episode. Now, it is Jeff Conaway doing the Travolta bit,
which is what he played initially.
Right. But saying the role of Sandy in this song, none other than Mary Lou Henner.
Wonderful.
She's singing because I didn't realize this. She actually was also she performed as Marty in the national touring company of Grease alongside John Travolta, who played Duty.
HP, is there any footage of that?
I don't know. I suspect not, but it's probably worth checking out.
I hear what you're saying about this scene and their songs playing and the breaking heart of poor Latka, right?
Yeah.
But because it's Jeff Conaway and Mary Lou Henner, and by the way, I did not know that information before you telling me that they had done it, but I recognized their voices. So what I thought was happening was they were literally off camera with microphones singing as as the scene was going on. So that made the scene more ridiculous in my mind, but only slightly less ridiculous than me falling for this fucking treacle here at the end where I'm supposed to feel bad for Latka. I don't feel bad for Latka one fucking drop.
But here's the thing. I've seen this episode probably at least a dozen times, and it always gets me because we shouldn't feel bad for Latka because he was done in by his own prejudice. He deserves to feel bad in this moment. I totally agree with you there. But Latka is this cute, cuddly, sweet presence, and it's impossible for me to not feel. And the way that Kaufman is playing this, it's impossible for me to feel nothing about this. I just, despite myself, I can't. It's treacly, but it's so sad. And like I said, the juxtaposition between the happy music and him just shoulders hung low, looking into his beer and just being depressed about the whole thing. It works for me. I can't help it. But the final button is what always gets me. And this final line in the episode is so typical of James Burrows and these kinds of shows, because I've seen moments like this in Cheers, the same vibe, the same bittersweet feel where there's an incongruousness between the comedy of the scene and the sadness and the pathos of something that just transpired. In this case, as the song is playing, Latka starts to tell one more mountain girl joke to Tommy. He says, how does a mountain girl make love? Tommy says, well, I don't know, Latka. How does she do it? And all Latka replies is, like an angel. And the song, you think that maybe it's going to be a joke or something funny, maybe, but it's so sad, his response, and the camera just stays on Latka. He's absolutely despondent, and the music is playing, and it holds for longer than you think it should. And By the end of it, you just see that Latka is really on the verge of tears. It's just a an amazing ending to this episode. That's all. It's the song keeps playing and we fade to black, and that's it. There's no button, there's no resolution to any of the other B or C plots of the episode. We're left with the image of Latka and the shame of what he's done and the sadness of what he has wrought. I love it.
You know, you remind me of scenes like that in Cheers. I remember when Shelley Long, when she finally left, Sam saying, have a good life. And they cut to the exterior of the bar looking down the stairs with Sam framed through the window. And that being the sort of button for a scene. I remember that because that was really, really good. And I think this is really, really bad.
We're going to have to agree to disagree. I love this, but I will give you, we'll put a pin in that. I have a great additional note to this. And this is another nugget from the official Taxi Fan Guide by Frank Lovies. Though this was Simca's first appearance, the character Father Malone was brewing in the writer's mind for some time. Do you remember the episode we talked about a few episodes ago called Alex's Romance with Dee Wallace? Of course you remember it.
Of course.
There was a never used speech in an early draft of Alex's Romance, okay? If you recall, at the end of that episode, Alex is pretty down in the dumps, and both Latka and Reverend Jim try to cheer him up, and it becomes this absurd thing.
Yeah, that was great.
But there was an unused speech that Latka made while he was consoling Alex. Forgive me, I'm not going to do the Latka voice, but I'm going to read. There's actual dialogue that I have here from this, which I think is really, really interesting. Latka says, Alex, in my country, I had a girl, Simca, golden-haired beauty. We love ourselves. Wow. She say, Latka, I love you. I want to spend life together. I want little Latkas. I say, oh, thank you very much. We plan wedding. When big day come, I wait and wait, but no Simca. Only dear Krepke letter. The years pass. I come to this country. Then one day in Central Park, there's my Simca. I run yelling, Simca, Simca. She no here. Two babies take her to the swings. She kissed them and smile. She look very happy. I walk away. That during this story, Latka becomes increasingly emotional until at the very end, he's reduced to heaving, wailing sobs. So at some point in the Taxi universe, there was an alternate universe where Simca was Latka's lost love from his home country, who basically left him at the altar. And then he sees her in Central Park years later. She's remarried. She has kids. She's happy. And this just guts Latka. I mean, this crushes him. I think that is fascinating.
That is fascinating. That would have been a great episode. Like, that could have been good in this episode. And then at the end, I would have given a shit.
We're going to talk about yellow lights.
What does a yellow light mean?
As a reminder, we score on a scale of 1 to 5 yellow lights. 1 is the worst Taxi episode. 5 is the best, the perfect Taxi episode. And as is our custom, we're going to throw it to you first, Father Malone. What do you give Guess Who's Coming for Brefnish?
I give 2 yellow lights.
Ooh.
To you and your valiant crew.
Is that a callback to the Klingon Christopher
John
Lloyd?
Schuck. That's right. Oh, no, Christopher Lloyd says that. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
But we talked about Schuck recently.
We did. 2 yellow lights, below average.
Right. And guess why it's getting 2 yellow lights at all?
Well, I know you're going to say that you don't give a shit because Latka made his bed and now he's going to lie in it. That there's no reason to feel sad for him, right?
No. I want to tell you the reason I'm giving it any yellow lights, because I think this was nothing of an episode. I'm giving it 2 yellow lights because Carol Kane is fucking awesome. Carol Kane is not only matching Kaufman comedically, she's outshining him dramatically, and she is fucking luminous, man.
Look, I can't argue with any of that. I will say that.
And you know what? Okay, you know what? Now let's get into it. No, give me your yellow lights. Let's get into it.
Okay, I give this 4 yellow lights. Okay, not only is this the introduction to another future Taxi all-star in Simca Doblitz, but it's an emotionally devastating showcase for Andy Kaufman. That alone The fact that he shows all of these different facets to his acting is fascinating, given the fact that he certainly wasn't known as a deep actor in that way. But it's the added dimension to Latka, despite the fact that it is his fault. I'm not letting him off the hook, but we've all made mistakes, not to this degree, but we've all made mistakes. We've all done stupid shit that we regret in relationships. And it's so poignantly depicted here. And I just, every time I watch it, Summer Lovin' comes on. That does it for me. I'm so sad for him. So I'm giving it 4 yellow lights. What do you think about that?
I think you're dumb.
I think you're a stupid head.
Here's the thing. What you're
Yeah.
talking about are youthful, not necessarily indiscretions, but the sort of stupid choices we make that have impacts that we're not considering. That's what you're describing as these little personal tragedies that we all have, right? Certainly.
Sure.
We've all done it. We've all made stupid things that we regretted instantly and perhaps regret to this day. Not one of those things was based on my racism. Because as much as they've just made this hill people, flatland people, as they might try to make this the fucking Montagues and the Capulets, what they've done by already introducing portions of Latka's country to us in this oppressive regime that's there. A couple of episodes ago, Latka almost went home for war. Okay. So now we're talking about the rivalry between the Flatlanders and the mountain people. And he is gleefully telling these jokes throughout that at the end, when it's like, oh, Latka's girlfriend didn't want to be with him because she knew that she would never be respected in him because he's a fucking racist. Sorry, it didn't click with me. It's so false and it's so string pulling, like you're gonna cry now, just like Angela fucking Matusa. Here's the part where you fucking relate, and here's the part where we go for our Emmy. Fuck you.
I guess I'm giving it bonus lights probably just for that final scene. I get it. I'm not excusing his racism. I think he gets everything that he deserves. It gets me every time. Maybe 4 is a little bit too much, but that's also coupled with the fact that, to your point, Carol Kane is amazing in this. There's a reason why she comes back eventually, and even given the fact that she's only really around for about a season and a half. She comes in about midway through the 4th season, and she carries through the rest of the 5th season, which isn't a lot. That's not a lot of episodes, but when you think of Taxi, she's one of probably, I would guess, one of the top 5 or 6 members of the ensemble that come to mind, even though for the majority of the series, she's nowhere to be found. And I think that's remarkable. And it's a testament to how good Carol Kane is in this. Like I said, when you think of Carol Kane, Simca is probably one of the top 3 roles that she's most heavily identified, right?
Absolutely.
So she's a marvel in this. And that's got to count for something.
Yeah, it counts for 2 yellow lights.
All right, well, it's one of those things. It's not quite as egregious as Angela, maybe, but it's
a
up
little
there.
worse, honestly.
So 2 yellow lights from Father Malone, 4 yellow lights from yours truly. So that's going to do it for this episode of Night Mr. Walters. Father Malone, where can the folks find you when you're not clocked into the garage?
Forever clocked in at midnight viewing. It's a twice a week show. Mondays is Sunday, Monday it's Father Malone's Weekly Roundup. It's all the newest stuff. And then every Friday it's either the television series Tales from the Dark Side or an anthology movie. We have lots of guests and filmmakers and stuff dropping by to like talk about their favorite anthologies. You can check all that out. Any of your podcatchers, midnight viewing, or if you want to support it, because we've got a Patreon show that HP and I are doing. It's going to be pretty fucking hilarious. Check that out. That's at patreon.com/Father Malone.
And 2 more points on that. Number 1, the weekly roundup is my favorite of all of the content you produce currently. That's my favorite with you and Ripley Jean. I will also say that in terms of guests and gets, I will say recently you had director, raconteur, special guy, Alan Arkish, the director of Rock and Roll High School, Get Crazy. The man is a legend. Go seek that out. He talked anthologies with Father Malone, and it was fucking great. So check that
Okay.
out, please.
Yeah, he's great. Yeah, I encourage people, not for me, check it out to listen to Alan Arkush talk about movies, man. It's like it is an education and a fun one at that.
It is, the man is really a treasure, and it's wonderful. You guys are on the same wavelength, and to hear you guys talking anthologies and movies is really special. For myself, yeah, you can also find me here and there on the Weirding Way network. I'm an occasional guest on the Culture Cast with Chris Dashew. I also have taken up the mantle of a podcast called Noise Junkies. I've got some new content up there, some new episodes. Please check that out. And I've also got a Bandcamp site, hpmusicplace.bandcamp.com. Feel free to check that out as well. For myself and for Father Malone, thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you again next time.
Night, Mr. Walters.
Hello, filthy movie lovers. My name is Gentry Austin.
And I'm Casey Scott.
And we're the hosts of the Sin Syndicate, film podcast for something weirdos, anti-criterion bros, and Joseph Sarno aficionados. Join us semi-weekly as we peer into the adults-only theaters and sticky-floored cinemas of the golden age of sexploitation, when the morals were loose, the laws were murky, and the intercourse was all simulated. Find us now on the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.